Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. All right, Tim said he was going to mute me if I said the wrong thing, so hopefully I say the right things. First thing I want to say is, wow, this is powerful. This is really cool. Very, very well appreciated that I was invited to join you this afternoon and feel this love and energy that you are bringing to this world, and it is super powerful. I don't know how often you guys sing those songs and how you all kind of know those words, because I can see it, everybody's singing with them. Some of the words are really saying, don't just sing the words. Do the actions. And I certainly hope that you guys are taking that in stride, because some of those words are so powerful. And as a guest, hearing them for the first time, I'll get tears in my eyes. And I hope every day, every week that you sing those songs, you're getting tears in your eyes. For those at home, you may not have recognized, but people are out here dancing, and they're moving, and they're getting some vibration going. And so I hope the people at home are also getting up and moving. And I hope you feel the love and power and support around you that we feel inside this building right now. When Pastor David wanted somebody to speak, he went to the most important person he's ever met. He said, "Would you speak at our congregation?" And that person declined. So he went to the most popular person he's ever met. And he said, "Would you speak at our congregation?" And that person refused. So he went to the best looking person he's ever met and said, "Would you please speak?" And that person said no. So finally, Pastor David said, "Dr. Dan, would you come speak at our congregation?" I said, "You've asked me 3 times already. Of course I'll speak to your congregation." So what we're going to talk about today is a little bit on the choices that we have in our environment, in our world, to get us through the stuff that, Pastor John's message was. Right now, especially in the last 8 months, but even before that, people are really conscious and fearful of speaking their mind for fear of being belittled, or fear of being attacked, or fear of being judged. And as Pastor John said, you have the voice, you have the horns, you have the ability to speak that out. And when your truth is truth, when your belief is solid, isn't it your duty to do that? And so don't be afraid to share your message when you truly believe your message is. Everybody's got the right to their own opinion. They don't have to agree with it, but if you don't share it, they may not even know it existed. And so that's why I'm sharing this today, because some of these things are common sense. Some of these things you've been taught by your mothers and your fathers and your teachers and your preachers, and they are meant for your benefit, and we get doctrinated by so many other influences in our world to take us away from that. And so sometimes we just need a little reminder. So don't let the topic of this class stress you out. But it's true. Stress really is the source of what kills us. If it's not a trauma, almost every cause of death is linked back towards stress. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. I want you to feel comfortable asking questions and interrupting. I'm totally comfortable going a certain direction if it's more topical to somebody, because if I'm forcing my class on you, it can be boring if it doesn't relate. But if it's asking or answering your specific question, a lot of times now you'll wake up. Okay, so I want to see if this thing works. I'll turn it on. Ooh, wrong button. There we go. All righty. So what are we going to try to discuss today is what is health. There is a big misconception of what that really means. Does anybody have health insurance? Okay, a couple of people have health insurance. Does anybody believe that health insurance truly takes care of health? Okay, so the answer a lot of times is no, because they recognize when they try to use it for health purposes, they're not getting health solutions. And so we want to recognize what health really means. And then what's a stressor? Most people think a stressor is something that's emotionally heavy on them. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that's true, but there's certainly other influences that are creating stressors. How does our body react to stressors? And does our body react by random chance, or is it intelligent? I believe God made our body perfect. God made our body intelligent. I want everybody to say this: I am fully equipped. I am fully equipped. Good. What does that mean? That means that I have the ability to do everything I'm supposed to do to live on this earth and to tolerate what this earth has given me, in spite of what technology and sound minds have tried to make us better, whatever that means. We sometimes have to go back to our roots and figure out what we were designed to do. What's our options? Okay? And those are the big things that I want to get through here. As I mentioned before, when we present information to somebody, they have a choice of what to do with it. But if there was a $100 bill underneath your car out there and you didn't know it, do you have the option to pick it up? Absolutely not. You can't make a choice if you don't know the choice exists. And so we're going to talk about some of your options. All right, some of the options are just simple hacks, okay? And we're going to have some things that I brought that I'm going to pass out to everybody to take home with them that gives them an opportunity to get some daily things that are just simple basics of how to start getting our foot going the right direction towards health. All right. So what is health? How do we know if we're healthy? Anybody got an answer? How do you know if you're healthy? Okay, I'm going to have to wake some people up. We're going to have people doing jumping jacks or something. How do we know if you're healthy? You feel good, okay? So no pain, right? I feel good. Okay, anything else? Able to function. Guess what? I do what I want, okay? I'm able to function. Anything else? What does the allopathic medical model say? Oh, well, you're in range. Okay, you got normal values. Are those truly indicators of health? Okay, well, I know a lot of people with cancers, with diabetes, with heart disease, they have zero pain. They feel good. Okay, so are they healthy because they feel good? No. Okay. Many of them also have the ability to do what they want because maybe the only thing they want to do is sit on their couch and watch Jerry Springer. Okay? So doing what they want may not be an indicator of health based upon what their choices are. And as we will find out, lab values, what are they basing those lab values on? So I graduated back in 1994. I know I look really young, but I did. And so back then, there was a certain number for blood pressure that was considered normal. And since then, 26 years later, they've changed that number 3 times. Is that because the general population of the world is becoming so much healthier that their normals have to go lower? Absolutely not. What could possibly be the reason that they want to change the numbers? Could it be because the people changing the numbers also want to sell their drugs? Yeah. So there's always outside influences making some of our decisions for us. So according to the World Health Organization, which doesn't have my full confidence, but they came up with a definition of health. So it's a state of, my little pointer doesn't work that far away, so you'll have to point with me. Health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely the absence of disease. Okay, and so we can't just say that I don't have diabetes, therefore I'm healthy. I don't have heart disease, therefore I'm healthy. Health is on a spectrum. I have optimum health over here, and I have my deathbed over here. Anywhere in the middle can be completely pain-free, have the ability to do what I want, have the ability to have normal values. I saw a study not too long ago about liver and fatty livers and how the only time that they will do a biopsy on a liver is if somebody wanted to donate it to somebody else. And so you had to go through all the hoops and you had to find out that all your values are normal. And once they found out all their values were normal, then they would do a biopsy. And over 70% of those livers of the healthy population that they biopsied were still pathologically fatty and couldn't be used for a transplant. So we have to recognize that health is on a spectrum. Would you rather be healthy or would you rather be just not sick? Okay. Would you rather be pretty or just not ugly? Would you rather be smart or just not dumb? You know, rich or just not poor? We have to recognize that because we kind of think that everything's an on or an off. I'm either healthy or I'm not. And sometimes that's true, but there is definitely a spectrum. The people that I use in most of my examples for optimum health would be an Olympic athlete. An Olympic athlete, they are going to make sure that they eat right. They're not going to deviate from that meal plan because they have the most important 10 seconds of their life happening 4 years from right now. So there's no way I'm going to deviate from that. I'm certainly going to exercise, but I'm not going to just run a race if I'm a sprinter. I'm going to do my yoga. I'm going to do my endurance. I'm going to do exercise for my whole body. And I guarantee every time I wake up in the morning, I'm going to look in that mirror and I'm going to say, Dr. Dan, you're the fastest man in the world. And I'm going to run that and I'm going to believe that. And so that's why I think that they are likely the epitome of what optimum health should be. Okay, now I did see some guys in the Winter Olympics that are pushing like a thing on the ice with the brooms, and I don't think they had those same mantras because they're probably out there, you know, in the bowling alleys drinking beers. But they're still Olympic athletes, so I can't disparage them. All right, so let's see where we're at. What is wellness? Okay, so why is there a difference between health and wellness? I just, in the last 2 weeks, got certified on my wellness practitioner certification course. And the reason I took that is because there is a difference. Health kind of got taken away as a label from the medical model. And in the last 70 years, we've really lost touch of what health means. And so this medical model, I mean, do we feel like we're a healthier species right now in the last 70 years or sicker species? Sicker. And so the medical model, I don't really believe is working. Now, it doesn't mean it doesn't work in certain situations, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But I think we need to understand that there is a difference between health and wellness. And wellness is kind of the way to maintain and get to health, the things that we need to do and recognize as this species, what is our requirements? And so wellness is the removal of interferences and the provision of raw materials that are required for our cellular function to work as designed. Okay, well, who designed it? Okay, I mean, speak up. Use your trumpet, man. There you go. God designed this. Okay, and we want to make sure that we don't lose fact of that. When I went to school, I took a lot of science. I started with the biology, and I learned all about these animals. And then I take anatomy, and I learn about the human species. Why the discrepancy between the two? Okay, and we're going to talk about this, and I don't want to insult anybody by saying that we are truly one of God's animals. We are made in His image, but He had to figure out a way that we can live on this earth. So He had to give us lungs. God doesn't have lungs, I don't believe. I don't think God needs lungs to live on the earth. But He gave other animals lungs, okay? And so I truly believe that we are one of God's animals, and we have to look at that as a biological aspect of things. So are we really that sick? Okay, so I mean, everybody in this, audience kind of agreed that in the last 70 years we're getting sicker, and so 50% of the population right now has chronic illness. Okay, so chronic illnesses are heart disease, diabetes, cancers, Alzheimer's, obesity, metabolic syndrome. Okay, major chronic illnesses. 2/3 are overweight or obese. Okay, and this is typically in America, the civilized country. Less than 25% get an adequate serving of vegetables. Okay, how many kids do you see right now? I mean, I see them all the time in my practice. I say, what's your favorite vegetable? Ooh, I mean, they don't even have a favorite vegetable. They have a fear of vegetables. And so those are the type of things that you have to recognize when we're dealing with choices. We have to go back into a behavior pattern, but before we can get to a behavior change, if you want it to stick, you have to get to a belief change. You can't find a way to go and eat something you don't like. You have to find a way to like something that's good for you. You can't find a way to get up and exercise and hate the exercise. You have to find a way to love the exercise because it's truly trying to love you back. 70% of the population fails to get enough physical activity, and 1/4 of them has no activity a day. None. And you'll find or you'll hear that without what's called movement neurology, it is truly one of the most important things for your nervous system to affect your emotions, your physical behavior, your learning abilities. All of those things have to require movement. That is why I'm so happy to see people dancing out here and getting up and moving around. And I hope, again, everybody at home is not just sitting down watching, but they're actually participating and they're getting that energy created because it's a vital piece of our health. Diabetes in the 10 years between 91 and 01, it went up by 61%. Do you think since 2001 we've got a handle on diabetes? Absolutely not. It is definitely getting worse, and it is getting at a younger age. 38% has high blood pressure. How many of those people that have high blood pressure feel the high blood pressure? None of them. Okay? So high blood pressure doesn't create pain. It doesn't create a symptom. Do you think high blood pressure happens randomly, or is it intelligent? We'll talk about that in a little bit. More than 40% has glucose intolerance, okay? Insulin intolerance. Has anybody ever heard of insulin intolerance? Insulin resistance? Insulin resistance is not a byproduct of diabetes, but a precursor of diabetes. But they kind of go hand in hand. And as your body gets so much used to eating sugar and eating sugar and eating sugar, and so much insulin goes into your body, insulin is a hormone that attaches to every cell, and it's not just to take glucose and store it into fat. It's got a bunch of other things. But insulin, so I have a brother who's 6 years older than me. Okay, 6 years is a pretty big difference when you're growing up. So he didn't like me, right? And he thought it was pretty fun if he could force feed me. And so imagine your favorite food, okay? Think of it, okay? And I want you to think about eating so much of it, you couldn't take another bite. But now imagine your favorite dessert. Oh, man, I wish I didn't eat so much because I really, really want that tiramisu. But I can't take another bite. But then my brother Steve, takes some tiramisu. You want some tiramisu? And he shoves it down your throat. Oh, man, I can't eat anymore. That's insulin resistance, okay? And now when Steve brings the next bite of tiramisu, I'm going to fight back. That is what your cells are doing every single day when they're overloaded with sugar. They will start fighting back. But guess what? They won't just fight back and say, hey, insulin, I don't like you. Hey, Steve, get away from the tiramisu. But when mom comes over and has the toothbrush, it's time for, nope, I don't want mom either. Dad comes over and wants to give me a love. No, I don't want dad either. I won't let anybody come near me. That's what insulin resistance is. It won't let anything come to the cell. Insulin, vitamin C, cortisol, it won't let anything work. So now, am I going to work better on any of my cellular function? The answer is no. Heart disease, 37% of all deaths. That's a lot, okay? Lack of exercise, poor nutrition. Every case of cancer can be brought back to that. And as you'll find out, basically every chronic illness can be reverted back to our lifestyle choices. All right, prescriptions, okay? So this is kind of the thing where I'm going to contrast the difference between wellness and allopathy or medicine. And it's not because allopathy doesn't work. I mean, when you are in a crisis, we need it. And it is saving lives. But when it comes to health and wellness, it has nothing to offer. And so it's important to recognize that there is a difference in those utilizations. 76% of all Americans take prescription drugs every day. 76%. So out of here, that's probably, 25, 30 of you. I bet it's not true, but percentage-wise, it would be. So that means how many more people out there are taking it? 25 million pills an hour in America. Who do you think is making money? All right, so let's talk about some biological laws. Okay, I talked about how, in science, we study the humans with anatomy, but we study every other animal on Earth in biology. So, states of cell function are determined by your genetic expression. So your genes, they're like your blueprints, okay? And the genes of every human are so similar. Our genes are so similar. You could have a room full of tomatoes that have totally different genes, more so than what we have in this room of humans. And so our blueprints are based upon how we are going to create this human being. Now, if I wanted to make blueprints to look like Ashley, and I used the greatest materials, to make sure that my house is super, super awesome. And then this other guy said, well, I'm going to make Dr. Dan with this really crappy materials because I need to save some money, okay? But the houses look pretty similar. Which house is going to rot first? Which house is going to start falling apart first? Which house is going to be the most appropriate house that you want to live in versus the house after a couple of years like, man, who plucked his hair out? So what determines your genetic expression determines your health and illness. So I want you to understand a genetic expression, what that means. Okay, so we all have the same genes and they don't change, and they haven't changed for thousands of years. But some of the genes will turn on and some of them will turn off based upon what's happening in your environment. Okay, whether I'm breathing toxic air from a fire or whether I'm sitting down eating Doritos. Okay, but something's going to turn those genes on. So has anybody heard of the breast cancer gene? Yeah, you've heard of them? Yeah, so we've heard. And so that got discovered about 25 years ago. There's a breast cancer gene. And so all these women kind of panicked and they went out and got tested to see if they had it. And many of those women, once they found out they had the gene, they went and got a mastectomy. Okay, they started cutting body parts off that God put in there intentionally, just because they had a fear that they had this gene. Is it safe to say in the history of man that the gene for breast cancer probably hasn't changed? It is. We know that for a fact. Okay, and not everybody thousands of years ago has got breast cancer. Did you know that they just discovered about 10, 12 years ago a hangover gene? A hangover gene, okay? And I got a big one. Hangover gene. I got a big hangover gene. And so the funny thing is, I don't get a hangover unless I drink. Right? And then if I drink and I get a hangover, I call my dad up and I blame him because of genetics. Right? Had nothing to do with my choice. It was my dad's fault. So we have to stop blaming our genes for what happens to our physiology. Okay, our physiology is how our cells respond. Our physiology is an expression of our lifestyle choices. They are ultimately what determines our health or our illness. And it's not our gene, it's whatever turns them on or off. The medical model, they like to look at the genes. Like, well, let's figure out how to make these genes not turn on. Let's figure out how to not make that gene turn into a hangover, turn into a breast cancer, turn into obesity. Okay, right now they're spending billions of dollars trying to figure out a genetic pill that affects your ability to get obese. Instead of going to the schools and saying, quit eating cheeseburgers and French fries and start eating an apple. They're missing the boat. They're not going back to the choice. Probably because they don't get money for a choice. And the biggest thing is this physiology random chance, or is the body intelligent? The body knows what to do. Your cells know what to do. Literally, when you were conceived, you had one egg, one little amoeba type thing, and one sperm, one other amoeba type thing. They didn't even have a full DNA. They had two half of DNAs that came together and had this miraculous result of creating an egg or a cell that has a DNA that becomes you. That cell becomes another cell, and that cell becomes two more cells, and it just keeps growing exponentially until eventually all those really super similar cells now create a different job. One's going to become a heart, one's going to become a brain, one's going to become a spine, one's going to become a muscle. How'd that happen? Random chance or intelligent? Every time or every time? That's right. So, as I said, we're one of God's animals. I hope that's not an insult, because I don't think it's an insult. I think it's fabulous. Okay? God made us perfect in His image with the ability to tolerate the world that He gave us. But He didn't give us willpower. We didn't need willpower. Okay? 5,000 years ago, you're walking around Earth. What are you going to drink for breakfast? Okay? Fresh water or fresh water? Right? We didn't have a choice. What are you going to eat? I'm going to eat organic produce or organic produce. If I can catch that animal, it's an organic animal, and I can eat it. If I can't catch it, I should probably learn how to run faster. I'll look in the mirror, say, Dr. Dan, you're the fastest man in the world. And then I'll catch that animal tomorrow. Right? But we didn't need to think, man, should I drink a Coke today or should I have a big gulp? Should I have a, Taco Bell or should I go Super Size Me? Anybody ever see the movie Super Size Me? Yeah, you remember that? Okay, the concept for those who didn't. So you got this healthy dude. He eats McDonald's. Dude starts to die. So literally in 28 days, he goes back to the doctor, and his liver is basically turning into pate because he's been force-feeding himself 3 meals a day at McDonald's. This was his documentary. 3 meals a day at McDonald's. If they offered to supersize, he had to take it based upon his own rules. And this is the funny thing. If he didn't have a camera crew following him and he went to that doctor, what would that doctor do? Give him a pill. And the doctor would probably ask, hey, does your mom have liver pate? And if his answer was no, he'd still get the pill. If his answer was yeah, he'd say, oh, well, it's genetic, and he'd get the pill. It just so happened this guy had a camera crew following him to show what he's been doing, so this one doctor had the miraculous thought that says, hey, dude, you should probably stop eating McDonald's. Why don't they tell that to everybody? So since we're an animal, we have to start thinking, what kind of laws apply to me? Okay, so if I'm an elephant in Africa, and I have a cousin who's an elephant in India, are they going to eat basically the same things? Same types of foods? I'd say probably. Okay, it may be a different source to get it, but they're not going to go and eat rabbits, right? They're not going to become meat eaters because they lived in this country. They're going to eat what elephants eat. If I'm a giraffe there versus a giraffe there, I'm going to eat what giraffes eat. Tigers are going to eat what tigers eat. Humans need to eat what humans eat, and we forget that. Okay, what do humans eat? Meats, fruit, and vegetable. That's what we're designed to eat. That's what was on the earth at the time that we were created. That's what we get to eat. Why did we have to start messing with that and make something else that somebody else says is food? Right now, what's Doritos' slogan? Their new ad campaign, they're trying to prove that you can recognize a bag of Doritos without a logo. And they are confident that you can. And unfortunately, I can. So it's working, right? All right, so what is necessary for you is also necessary for you. What is toxic for you is toxic for you. Okay? It can't work any other way. That's how this works. We are so similar as a species that we have to stop creating that divide. Okay? Not just the mental divide, but the dietitian divide. I mean, these PhDs in nutrition are saying, oh, well, you probably need 225 calories an hour to, function, and you probably need 38% more protein than you do. And based upon what? No other animal would think that way. No other animal would say, man, how much protein does this grub beetle have? They don't think that way. So why are we sick? So there's a direct relationship between the habitat and lifestyle and our genetic expression. We talked about that just a little bit. What I choose to do, what I choose to express myself with, makes my genes function different. If I drink alcohol, my genes are going to express myself to say, hey, dude, you probably shouldn't have had that last night. Okay? So do you think God creates a hangover gene or a breast cancer gene because he's got a sixth sense of humor and says, oh man, I'm going to throw something in there that's going to kill people? No, God wouldn't do that. Okay? But thousands of years ago, we wouldn't have had hangovers and breast cancer because we weren't exposed to alcohols and Doritos. Okay? We weren't being force-fed hormones because we're in menopause now. Oh, well, you better just take these hormones. God took the hormones out because you got a certain age, but we think God's wrong, so let's give you these hormones. Oh, you're going to get breast cancer, but at least you don't have hot flashes. Why are we doing this? So we have to go into our own choices. We have to take responsibility for our own self. All right, so it's really simple. Really simple. You'll love this, okay? Pay attention to this part, okay? What do you eat? How do you move? What do you think? Okay? If you get nothing else today, eat well, move well, think well. Okay? I want you to say it all out loud so it sticks in your own head because you believe yourself. Eat well, move well, think well. Okay? It's funny how when you say it, you believe yourself more than you believe Dr. Dan. I mean, I know it's because of the jacket, right? It's like car salesman, I don't know about him yet. All right. Oh, we don't need that stuff. Okay, so we wanted to talk about what a stressor is, okay? We don't need to make this really simple or really difficult. We want to make it simple. So the stressors can be categorized in two different things: toxic or deficient. Toxic or deficient. What is toxic for me is toxic for you. That could be physical toxicity, like a trauma, okay? Car crashes, lifting something heavy, broken bones. Those are toxicities. That's a stressor. My body's going to respond to that. That can be chemical, obviously. If I'm eating a Dorito or I'm drinking a Coke or I'm having my ice cream. I do like ice cream if you guys didn't hear that before. That's toxic, okay? My body's going to react to that, okay? If it's emotion, okay? I can have worry. Maybe my house was potentially going to catch on fire. I can have worry. Maybe I needed to wear a mask today because, people might judge me, or maybe I might get sick. I have worry. I don't know who's going to win the election, and therefore the whole world's going to crumble. So we can have toxic thoughts, and our body will respond to those. Or we can have deficient thoughts, okay? So maybe I just don't feel loved. I don't feel supported. I don't feel like I'm contributing to the society. I don't feel like I have a group around me that I can relate to. Maybe I'm at home right now instead of out in the world because I'm fearful that I'm not accepted. I can have deficient chemistry, okay? Maybe I don't eat enough vegetables, okay? Maybe I'm not eating the Doritos and Coke, but I'm not eating vegetables either. So I'm deficient in things. Maybe I don't get enough water, okay? Maybe I don't get enough vitamin C. Maybe I don't get enough omega-3s. All of these things that are required as my cellular needs are being missed. And then physical deficiencies, as we talked about, is movement. We require movement. We were not designed to sit. We were designed to squat. Okay, this is how we rested thousands of years ago. God didn't give us chairs. Laziness gave us chairs. Okay, maybe some sore tushies gave us chairs, but we were designed to squat. That has a huge effect on our structure, has a huge effect on our movement integrity. We weren't designed to text. That has a huge negative effect on our posture, which has an effect on our nervous system, has an effect on our joint degeneration. So we were requiring movement. So if we don't have movement throughout the day, if we're not out dancing, if you go back, not even go back, but if you go back to indigenous tribes or Native Americans, or you go down the Amazon right now and you find these uncivilized people, what are they doing? They're dancing all the time. They're revering their elders, making them not a burden. They're making them, what did you have to say today? What did you have to say today? They have respect for everybody. The kids, right now all these kids are complaining because they got these books in their backpacks, and oh man, that's too much. And all these parents are like, well, we can't give them books in the backpacks. We need to do better backpacks. It's not the backpacks. Okay, kids in those other tribes, they're carrying 500 pounds a day, moving stuff to and from villages. They're good little workers. I think I'm going to go get a couple of them for my own. So we have to ask the question when it comes to our health. And these are questions you have to ask yourself every day. What am I toxic or deficient in? When you can answer that question honestly, you now get to create the choices of how to make yourself better tomorrow. Okay, you said, I want to leave here a totally different person today. You get to make that choice, and you get to make that choice with everything that comes across your path. Am I going to be a better person today than I was yesterday? That's the goal we should always have, okay? Spiritually, physically, emotionally, familially. Everything should be a goal to be a better person. What does that mean is up to you, but that should be a goal. And once you start getting some of these choices and you start getting a little bit of different understanding, maybe this one resonates with you. It doesn't matter to me because it resonates with me. But at least it gives you the option to make that. There may be people in this audience that are very medically oriented and they truly believe the medical system, and I think more power to you, because when you believe something, it's going to work better for you than if you don't believe it. That's the power of placebo. Does everybody know what a placebo is? Yeah? Okay, is placebo a good thing or a bad thing? It's neither, okay? We're one of the only animals that labels things good or bad. But a placebo is an important thing, okay? So to understand how the placebo works, if I wanted to test something and I gave you a real medication, I gave you a sugar pill. The sugar pill would be the placebo, right? And then we'd check at the end of the study and say, how did you respond and how did you respond? But what they don't really tell people is what to believe about that pill. So what they should do is give you a real pill and say, hey, this is a real pill. And then give Ashley a fake pill and say, hey, this is a real pill. And then they give Tim a fake pill and say, this is a fake pill. And then they give Brittany a fake pill and say, it's a real pill. And now we see what's happening and see what the power of the belief is. Because it's very powerful. I would believe it's more powerful than the medication would be. Okay, so the belief is huge, and I don't want to change people's beliefs. I want to people have an option to change their beliefs. This is a good analogy. So when we're talking about trials and whether or not placebo works, if you think about a wilted plant, most of the medical model would ask the question, how can I get the wilted plant not to wilt? Okay, that's the medical question. And so they would study their thing and they would say, okay, I'm going to take 10 wilting plants and I'm going to give them real sunlight. And I'm going to take these 10 real plants and give them fake sunlight. And at the end of the trial, I'm going to look. And if all my plants are still wilting, the gold standard medical model of evidence would say, and it'd have to conclude this with the gold standard, sunlight's bad for plants. That's how medicine works. That's how research works. Sunlight would be bad for plants based upon the gold standard medical model. And so then they could do another test and say, well, I'm going to give these wilting plants fake water. I'm going to give these wilting plants real water. And at the end of the 6 weeks or whatever their trial period is, if all plants stayed wilting, they would have to conclude water is bad for plants. And if you were to give water to a plant and you charge that plant for water, you could be charged with malpractice. Okay? Well, maybe they're not asking the right questions. Okay? Maybe they're deficient in soil. They don't have the right soil. Well, maybe they're deficient in all of them. Okay? So you can give, this one real water, real soil, and fake sunlight, and this one real water, real soil, real sunlight, etc. And still at the end, you could still have all these wilting plants. Oh, well, water, sunlight, and soil is bad for plants. Okay? Or at least doesn't help plants. And they forget to look at the toxicity. Maybe the guy down the street's dumping diesel fuel in your plants. Okay, and so we have to recognize that the way that they're looking at things isn't always cut and dry. It is very reductionistic. That's one thing about evidence and research is you start to know more and more about less and less. The more I reduce it down, the more I reduce it down, the more I reduce it down. Now I know a whole lot about this one little tiny thing. But I forget to look at the holism. Well, how are we doing in medicine? If you go to a cardiologist, is he going to look at your brain? No. Is he going to look at your kidney? You're going to look at your toes? Going to look at your skin? No. He's going to look at your heart. And that's what we're doing, is we're reducing it down. But he's going to know a lot about your heart. But what if it wasn't your heart? What if it's the Doritos you were eating? Yeah? Well, I got a pill for that. All right, so let's talk about the reaction to stress. Okay, so is stress a good thing or a bad thing? Yeah. What if I was to go to the gym and exercise? Is that going to stress my body? Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is stress a good thing or a bad thing? It depends, okay? It's a reaction, okay? Your body has to react to something, and some of the reactions are good, okay? Let me back that one up. All of the reactions are good, okay? All of the reactions are good. Is the body intelligent? Every time or every time? So we have to stick with that, myself included. I can't waver back and forth and say sometimes the reaction's bad. No, the reactions are always good. It is giving your body the best opportunity in that event. And so when we exercise versus we don't exercise, the reaction to that either stressor is the appropriate reaction. All right, so we're self-healing and self-regulating. I think everybody knows that. If I cut myself, doesn't matter if one of the little boys cuts himself, your body's going to heal. They don't have to look at it and say, man, I don't know what healing means, but I'm going to make it heal. It just happens. And so we don't have to think about that. Your brain gets over 1 trillion messages every single second. Every single second, 1 trillion messages go to your brain. So I want you to concentrate a little bit on what that means and have an idea what 1 trillion is. So if you were to count 1 million seconds, it would take you 12 days. If you were to count 1 billion seconds, it would take you 34 years. And so 1 trillion seconds is 34,000 years. And that's how many messages your brain gets every single second. Now, consciously, you can comprehend about 50 of them. Okay, otherwise you'd go crazy and probably die. Too much stress. Sometimes I can only concentrate on like 5 of them. Okay, and we'll talk about why that happens later. So if I sit on that chair, like Tim just said on that chair, the first thing that just happened is Tim's butt talks to Tim's brain. Does that happen a lot? Hopefully it doesn't make your decisions for you. So it talks. It says, hey, dude, you're sitting on a chair. And your brain will be like, well, tell me about that chair. And your gut says, well, it's got a cushion, so it's pretty comfortable. And it's sturdy, so I think we're safe. And your brain's like, hey, thanks. And then your butt's like, dude, you're sitting on a chair. And you're like, I know. Dude, you're sitting on a chair. You're sitting on a chair. You're sitting on a chair. Your brain's like, dude, shut up. Your butt is not going to shut up. It's a nervous system. It's telling you. It's saying, hey, I'm aware we're sitting on a chair. And your brain has to decide if that's still important. And eventually it isn't. And so that's why you won't feel your shoes until somebody reminds you you're wearing shoes. And you won't feel the chair until Dr. Dan says you're sitting on a chair. And so your brain decides which is going to be the top 50 that gets to your consciousness. Some of you at the beginning of this lecture said Dr. Dan's at the top 50. Now maybe you're like, nah. Now, if somebody lit your chair on fire, your butt's message is the only message. It's going to be all 50 of the messages, okay? Because now it's a survival issue. Dude, chair's on fire. Well, I don't care what Dr. Dan says. I don't care what the screen says. I don't care what thoughts were going through my head. I don't care about digestion in my stomach. I am getting off this chair, okay? Get me safe, and then I can figure out the world. So if the stressor is natural and safe, we can adapt, okay? If I go up to Colorado where I can't get enough oxygen, I will choose to create more red blood cells to get more oxygen. I will create a new normal for my balance. I will get balanced at a new thing that I can adapt to. So if I have a bear in the summer and it's, got a big full, bunch of muscles and it's got a lot of energy and it's catching fish and it's eating berries, it's got a thin layer of fat and it's pretty active, and then I got a bear in the winter that's hibernating after he's eaten all his food. The hibernating bear's got really low blood pressure, really low pulse rate. The one in the summer, man, it's active and it's high blood pressure and it's moving grooving. Which bear is the healthy bear? That's a trick question, okay? They're both the healthy bear. The one in winter has to adapt to that environment because guess what? He doesn't want to hunt in the winter. He doesn't need to hunt in the winter. He's eaten his food. He's gotten his fat. He's now able to hibernate. He's supposed to do it based upon his genetic requirements, okay? His species is supposed to be that way. And then in the summer, he's supposed to be active in hunting. So what happens if the stressor isn't so safe? Okay, so we're walking around, 1,000 years ago. We're going down to the lake to get some water because we could drink out of the water back then because it's safe. Now you drink out of the water and you get sick and you die because it's genetics, right? No, it's because the water is probably toxic now compared to what it was. But you're sitting here, you go to the water and got a little nice steam coming off, and you look up, there's this fawn, and pretty soon, rah, this big bear comes out, right? And this big bear gets perceived by your environment, your nervous system. It recognizes an attack. What's going to happen? Do I have to shift now my immediate physiology to survive? Has anybody ever heard of the term fight or flight? Is fight or flight designed to make you healthy? Safe. Perfect. Fight or flight is designed to make you safe first, right? So if I had a house up on Crooked Finger Road in Scotts Mills last week, and this fire starts licking at my doorstep, and I start taking my hose and squirting my house down, is that hose and water making my house better? No, but is it potentially going to save it from the fire? Right. And so when the fire's gone, is there potentially going to be water damage? Yeah, but it gave me the opportunity to save my house, and now I can work on getting it back into good working order again. Okay, so it's designed to keep us healthy, not keep us healthy. It's designed to keep us alive long enough to get us healthy. And so allowing the opportunity, that's a big big part of that sentence. It allows you the opportunity. Now, if I'm fighting a bear, I recognize that bear exists, and I'm probably going to do something about it. I'm not going to think about it and look at the bear and say, well, it looks kind of like an old bear, and maybe his teeth are rotten out. Maybe he doesn't think I'm interesting enough. I don't have the luxury to make that decision at that time. You don't get to say, oh, I didn't think about it, and now the bear is chawing on my arm, and man, I wish I would have thought about it. You'd rather think about it, get away from the bear, and then recognize, oh, man, that was an old bear, right? So it gives you the opportunity, but you still have to make the choice. And there's another key thing. Fight or flight is designed to be temporary, okay? Should last about 20 minutes, okay? You should be able to find safety, kill the bear, flee the bear, and find safety in order for your body to switch back out of fight or flight, which is called basically rest and digest. All right, so first you got to recognize the threat. If you don't recognize the threat, then you're bear food, right? But if it's not a bear, okay, then let's go here. Oh, so let's talk about this. Okay, this is what happens when you're fighting the bear. I'm under stress. I recognize the stress. I elevate my stress hormones. They are cortisols. They are catecholamines. It's called adrenaline, norepinephrine, stuff like that. They are designed basically to increase your metabolic rate to make you stronger, faster, more resilient. Okay, so what happens is I increase my heart rate and my blood pressure. Okay, I increase my heart rate and my blood pressure. Well, we just said that 2/3 of Americans have high blood pressure. Isn't that a bad thing? So why would I increase blood pressure? Hey, Dr. Dan, you just said the body's intelligent. Why would it do that? Okay, well, I need to get more blood flow going, right? Because blood flow is going to provide energy to my muscles. So I better increase my blood pressure. I increase my blood sugar. Oh, my blood sugar, isn't that related to diabetes? Well, yeah, but blood sugar is your immediate energy. And they're going to get to your muscles so you can utilize them right now. Okay, it increases my cholesterol. Have you ever heard of the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol? Is there a such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol? Huh? It's cholesterol, okay? Is the body intelligent? Yeah, every time or every time. Right, so there is no such thing as good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. There's cholesterol. There's different parts of it, and when you are under stress, you will increase the parts of the cholesterol that are helpful for clotting, because it is certainly possible that that bear is going to get you if you're fighting it, and you better clot faster because you don't have the luxury to sit there and bleed and say, time out. It increases my inflammatory chemicals. Inflammatory chemicals on an acute basis actually reduce your pain levels. It allows you to get hurt by the bear without crying and going home saying, no, I'm not going to fight. It increases your anxiety and awareness. Because guess what? If you're fighting a bear, even if you left the bear or killed the bear, you're going to be looking for another bear. Okay? Because you're scared. And it's what that noise? That's a bear. I know it's a bear. And you're going to be looking for it. So we see a lot of people in our office for car crashes. And I tell them, guess what? You're going to be looking for car crashes for the next 3 or 4 weeks. It is normal. You're going to have fear and anxiety when you get behind the wheel. You're going to have fear and anxiety when you go to that same intersection you just got hit in, because you're going to be looking for it, because you just got hit and attacked by that bear. Okay, so we are going to be looking for threats all the time. We're going to decrease our rational thoughts and our concentration. Why do we do that? Well, unfortunately, it's really expensive to change certain things. And if I'm fighting a bear, I probably shouldn't be thinking about grandma's birthday party and, what I want to do, for school next year. And man, all these stuff, that's inconsequential. You don't want to expend energy to that part of the brain. I'm not thinking about my future goals right now. I'm thinking about survival right now. So I constrict the blood flow to the front of my brain that has empathy, that has compassion, that has consequential rational thoughts. And I increase that awareness factor and that immediate gratification of decision making. It decreases my cellular immune system. Well, if I'm under stress, man, don't I want an immune system? I thought the body was intelligent. What's going on with that? Okay, well, has anybody ever had the flu or a cold? Okay, does that make you more energized or less energized? Why? Your body's fighting it off, but why would that make you less energized? You're using so much energy. It's so highly metabolically expensive to have your immune system working. Okay, and so right now, your immune system isn't as important as your strength. And I can tell you that if you're fighting a bear, if you start throwing white blood cells at it, it's not going to stop. All right, so your immune system doesn't do any good fighting a bear. So it's got to shut it down. Decrease your ability to bind insulin to your sugar. Okay, so this is important. You have all this blood sugar because you want it to go to your muscles. So you better stop your insulin from binding to it because you don't want to store it for fat. You need it right now. Okay, but the insulin, it still is being told, hey man, you got all this sugar up there, and the brain's like, oh man, we're gonna die. Do that insulin stuff. But the brain's also like, oh, but yeah, don't do that insulin stuff. Just block the insulin. Okay, and so it stops the insulin from attaching to the sugar. So now you have this free-floating insulin. What's the insulin gonna start affecting? All the other cells. The other cells gonna be happy about that? Not real. Luckily, this is only designed to last about 20 minutes. That'd be great. Decrease your ability to bind your sex hormones where they belong. Okay, so what's that mean? We talked about, the menopause and adding progesterone and potentially getting, breast cancers and stuff like that. So your sex hormones, they are designed to go certain areas at certain times of the month, okay, men and women. But when you're fighting a bear, guess what? Probably shouldn't go get somebody pregnant. So we're not going to bind those sex hormones somewhere. We're just going to let them free float because that's expensive. I don't want to worry about those things. Okay? And for 20 minutes, that's fine. No worries. Now, that'd be great if it was 20 minutes. What happens when it stays and remains in our environment? Okay? If that bear stays in our environment, what happens if it doesn't last 20 minutes anymore? Well, if it's a bear, it's easy to recognize that the bear is in my environment. Maybe I should go somewhere where it's not there. What if it's not a bear? Okay, what if it's something more familiar? Okay, what if I don't have a home? Okay, what if I don't have safety? What if I don't have love? What if I have pain? Okay, pain's a big thing. As soon as I have pain, guess what my nervous system's thinking? Dude, we're under attack. Fight. Prepare to fight. What am I fighting? I don't know, fight. Okay, what if I just sit all day long? I got this terrible bad posture. I don't know there's a bear. I don't know there's anything wrong. I'm just going to hang out this way. Okay? What? Why is everybody laughing, man? This is the way people look. Just watch. Okay? What if it's a donut? What? Oh, wait a minute. Now you're talking fighting words here. All right. Well, guess what? Every food you put in your mouth has a genetic expression to your cells. And is it possible that if I had a donut versus I had an apple, my cells are going to express differently? Yeah. And so, okay, let's go back, 5,000 years. No donuts exist. Walking around, Salem area, looking at my organic produce. Don't feel like catching rabbit right now. Oh, what's that, a donut? Well, some time traveler left his donut on the rock. I'm like, well, what's that? And I smell it. Hey, that smells pretty good. That's pretty good. And I take a bite. I'm like, hey, I like this. And you eat it. Well, guess what your gut is telling your brain? Dude, you're about to die. And your brain's like, what? It's like, you've never had that much sugar in your whole body at once. What are you going to do about it? Well, the brain knows what to do. Intelligent all the time. So it tells the pituitary to tell your thyroid, to tell your pancreas, dude, do that thing with the insulin. So it flushes your whole body with insulin. It takes all of it. It doesn't measure. It just flushes. It's like flooding the gates. Please take away the sugar. So it binds up all the sugar. And it's like, what do you want me to do with it? Well, normally what it would do is it'd burn it for energy because guess what? Prepare to fight. Okay? But if you don't use the energy, because guess what you're not getting? That message saying you're about to die is not a top 50 message yet. Okay? 5,000 years ago, after about 30 to 60 minutes, oh yeah, you're keeled over and you're like, man, what was that? And you'll go run back to the village saying, man, these donuts are devil. Don't you dare eat a donut. And that would be the best thing in the history of the world if that would have happened, because then the generational, stories from here on out would be never eat a donut. And we wouldn't have Dunkin' Donuts. But we probably wouldn't have the same level of diabetes that we have now. But now, since we're more used to sugars, we don't get that effect when we eat a donut. And so we don't get a message to our brain saying something's wrong that tells Dan. It tells my brain tells my body, but Dan, whose cells is now prepared to fight, doesn't know to fight. I don't fear that donut. In fact, I love the donut. I hope he has friends. And I just keep eating them. And so now my blood sugar stays there. My insulin can't bind it because I'm in stress mode. We're not supposed to bind the insulin to sugar. You got to use that sugar to make your muscles work. Well, if I'm not binding the sugar, well, the insulin's going to start making things, and now the sugar has to now get used for fat. Well, then I get this thing around my belly. There is no reason, there is no physiological benefit to having belly fat. Okay? It is just basically waste. Okay? It's intelligent waste because there's no other place to put it. It's like, might as well put it there because then you won't trip over it. But it doesn't have any other purpose. What if we're just unhappy? Okay? If we are truly unhappy, depressed, anxious, we're going to have our body think we're in an unsafe environment, and we're going to give you the opportunity to fight. But what are you going to fight? What are you going to do about it? All right, so if it stays in your system long enough, now all of your fight or flight responses become chronic. This shift, all these physiological shifts that take you away from resting and digesting and balance, and in this high anxiety level of high blood pressure and high cortisol levels, stays there. Okay? Oh, let me go back one. So go to that bottom line. So my adrenal fatigue, my adrenal hormones are making my adrenal system stay activated all the time. It makes me unable to sleep. Okay? It makes me require caffeine or sugar or exercise or something to stimulate me the next day just to get me through the day. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Yeah. Okay? It's the American way. Right? And so when we do that, the adrenals are like plow horses. Okay? So our plow horses, we're plowing the field. Pretty soon they get tired. I'm like, well, you can't get tired. I got this big field to plow. So you get your whip out and make some noise. And they're like, and like, oh, yeah, they weren't tired. They just needed some noise. We're going. Pretty soon they got tired again. I'm like, man, I still got this big field to plow. So now you start making some noise, and they're not moving. And so I'm like, get them on the butt. Well, now they're moving. Hey, they weren't tired. Your adrenals are exhausted. Your horses are dying. You're not letting them rest. Every time you're taking your caffeine, every time you're drinking your soda, every time you are, getting through alcohol, or I have to exercise today, but I'm so exhausted. Well, I thought exercise was good for you. It is if you're able to tolerate that next stressor, but if your adrenals are shot, you're just whipping your horses. You are trying to get through today by borrowing tomorrow's energy. You are extending yourself too much credit, and eventually you're going to have to start paying. And I always tell people, if you don't give yourself a break, God will reward you with one. All right, so what happens when we're chronically in fight or flight? Elevated heart rate, elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol. What do we get? Read it. Elevated blood sugar, downregulated insulin. What do we get? Yeah, is this intelligent? Good answer. That's correct. We have to stay intelligent. This is giving you the best opportunity to survive that environment. We have to get this. God didn't label heart disease or diabetes. Medicine labeled that. I didn't read anything in the Bible about diabetes, right? But somebody had to label the effect, and now they just concentrate mostly on that effect. What if I can do to change that effect? What you can do is swim upstream and figure out what caused the effect. Okay, we got decreased cellular immunity. Okay, the white blood cells don't want to work. And we have increased sex hormones just running rampant and landing in the brain and landing in the breast and landing in the prostate where they don't belong. I get cancers. Decreased serotonin, dopamine, increased anxiety, anxious memories. Okay, I remember that bear all the time. I keep remembering the bear. The bear's out there to get me. I'm going to get anxiety, depression. Okay, I get decreased memory and focus. Prolonged cellular inflammation, every major disease, and disengagement of what's called your prefrontal cortex, which is your empathy, compassion, goal-oriented, concentration. What do we see in the world right now? Do we see a lot of overreactions to headlines? Do we see a lot of people reacting to, my family is being divided right now because of whatever's politically going on, whether it's a virus, whether it's a racial intolerance, whether it's political statements of the elections. All of those things are happening, and if you disagree, if you say one disagreement of one thing, I see it being labeled that you would disagree with me on everything. I'm like, what just happened? And so it's unfortunate that we have such a immediate gratification mentality right now in society. Okay, we need to step back and figure out where our roots are. Okay, that's why I think, wouldn't it be great if everybody in the world heard the words to those songs today? Yeah? So is there some trumpets in the audience that can sing those songs to people? Absolutely. All right. Literally, the cause of all chronic illnesses is what we just talked about. That's how smart you guys are now. You know the cause of every illness. Body does not make mistakes. It changes based upon your environment and lifestyle choices. Okay, is anybody in here able to run a marathon today? No? Anybody in here able to run a marathon a year from today? Yeah. Do you think if you trained for that, your body would change? Yeah. Why wouldn't you train for it then? That's right. You don't have to run the race, but you might want to train for it anyway. All right. So what's the standard response? Okay, the standard response, I'm talking about the allopathic medical model. So I'm going to give you an analogy here. Let's say allopathy is the fire department. Okay, and this is nothing against fire departments because I praise them right now. I love them, and I'm getting ready to donate a bunch of service to them. But in this analogy, the fire department is the medical model. Okay, we talked about if the fire is licking my house, I need to call the fire department. If my house is on fire, if your house is on fire, who are you going to call? The fire department. Your house is in a crisis. It needs saved right now. What's the fire department going to do? They're going to come in with their axes and they're going to bust down your windows and kick down your doors, and then they're going to douse your whole entire house with water, right? And if they got there fast enough, did their job good, they could save the life of your house, okay? And make it able to be, salvageable. The problem is, now in this model, you call the fire department back on Tuesday and say, hey, my house is a mess. I need you to come back and, do something. Right? And so the fire department will come and look at your house, and they're going to spray it down with hoses again. And they control all the money and resources. And so they utilize the science to say, hey, we can prove without a doubt that if we hose houses down every week, we'll stop fires. Right? They're not going to stop anymore. Well, the problem is they also use everything with fear. Because they keep telling you with their media and their commercials and their doctors, fires are going up. Everybody's catching on fire. Everybody's catching on fire. Everybody's house is on fire. Your house is going to catch on fire. right? And so people believe it, like, oh man, I don't want my house on fire. What do I need to do? Well, wellness shows up and says, well, these fires are preventable. And they're like, what do you mean? Well, we want to participate. Chiropractors like to do that. Well, you have to show without a doubt that what you can do prevents fires. And we're like, we don't want to prevent fires. We're not firemen. We're like carpenters, like Jesus. And so we want to, we're going to show up with our hammers and our paintbrushes to this fire, and how foolish are we going to look? And the fire department's going to laugh at us. That's kind of what they're doing. But how foolish and impotent does the fire department look when they come with their axes and hoses, and all the homeowner wants to do is make their house livable and pretty, and clean the eaves and gutters and make sure the wiring's all working right? It's a different model. And so we can't show that we're going to prevent fire, or we're going to put out fires. I don't want to put out a fire. But I can show that I can make your house livable, I can make your house pretty, and I can make your house the beautiful place it's designed to live. And it's safe and it's effective. And, that's what we should focus on, and not always what can we do to put out fires. If I hose your house every week, I'll keep the fires out. Okay? Well, the house is rotten. They're not going to ask if what they do rots your house. They're going to ask if what they do could put out fires. It's all in the question. Okay? So that's a big thing to think about. It's all in the question. Okay? When you get these data about masks and data about viruses, data about social distancing, it's all about the question. Are they asking the right questions? Okay, so doesn't science prove that medication works? Okay, so here's a question. Can the fire department put out fires? Absolutely. Yep. Can the fire department, we can't. Can the fire department improve and maintain the quality of the home? No, that's not their job. Okay, so medications can save lives, but they cannot help with health. So I want to talk about one specific medication. Cholesterol drugs, okay? For the last 25 years, cholesterol drugs have really had a major push, okay? And it's basically the same thing. What's the question? Well, we know, we being the medical model, the fire department, we know that high cholesterol leads to heart disease. Okay, well, that is true. That is true. They are absolutely correct. If I have that LDL cholesterol that is helpful in clotting factors in case that bear gets me, and it stays there long enough in my chronic lifestyle, it will start to probably plaque my arteries and make all the other things that are in that chronic lifestyle possibly get to me. Now, what they're not asking is, can my cholesterol medication improve health? Okay, so this is from 2013 after reviewing 39 studies on this one statin drug. Number one, they found it doesn't even work for what they're saying it works for. Okay, so they can clinically prove that they will lower cholesterol by a certain amount. They know that for a shadow of a doubt, and that is the question they'll ask. Can I lower cholesterol? Yeah, and this study shows you lowered it by 18%. Ooh, that's great. But what was the reason we wanted to lower cholesterol? No, not for long-term health. To what? To prevent heart disease, exactly. Oh yeah, the algebraic model of A plus B equals C. Okay, so if high cholesterol increase heart disease, if I lower cholesterol, I'll decrease heart disease. That makes sense. Okay? What they're showing, and in fact, it used to be clinically written on their ad, not in the abstract of the journal, but on the ad itself. Clinically proven to reduce cholesterol has no effect on heart disease. It was in the ad. Why would people take it? And so it does not work. It was not helpful for primary heart disease. You have all these people still dying of heart disease. Is it because they stopped taking their cholesterol medication? No. It causes or increases muscular disease, lung disease, diabetes, hemorrhage of your brain, Parkinson's disease, cancer, cataracts, artery calcification, and I think anxiety was another one. Okay? Now, those are what it will cause. but you have lower cholesterol. It won't help with heart disease, but you have lower cholesterol. So the consumer, the public, we're being told we're going to lower your cholesterol, and we believe that's going to help. And the medical doctors, God bless them, because I have a ton of friends that are medical doctors. They believe, what I'm saying. They understand what I'm saying, but they are told that this is going to reduce heart disease. They're not reading the studies. They're looking at the headlines. So it's no different than what people are doing right now and overreacting to a headline. They're looking at these headlines, and they're being told by these pharmaceutical reps, this is what you're supposed to prescribe now. And they look at these bullet points. Hey, 18% reduction in cholesterol. That sounds great. And so they're just doing it. And it's not because they want to hurt people. They want to help people. Truly they do. And most of them are helping people in a time of a crisis. But now they have to swim upstream and tell them what to do with their lifestyle. And if they tell them that without giving them the pill, just like the guy on Super Size Me, if that guy didn't know he was doing that documentary and he told him, stop eating McDonald's, and he didn't give him the pill, that doctor could lose his license because this is not a standard of care. By far, the greatest number of prescription drug-related hospitalizations and deaths occur from drugs that are prescribed properly by physicians, not overdosed, not misdiagnosed, not taken wrong. Properly described or prescribed is the leading cause of drug-related death, and it is the 4th leading cause of death in the United States. Properly prescribed drugs is the 4th leading cause of death in the United States. Who is concerned about COVID now? I mean, really? But there isn't anything on the news about, oh my God, don't go to your doctor. Right? Why isn't that? Okay? Who's in charge of the news? So, I was going to say something about that, but I guess I won't because I forgot. All right, so what's the biological response? Okay? Every animal has specific requirements to be healthy. What's toxic for one is toxic for all. Too much of a bad thing or not enough of a good thing. Okay? Anybody remember the Great Lakes when they started polluting and the fish all started dying? Okay? Most of you are probably too young for that. So back in the 70s, who watched Saturday Night Live? Anybody watch Saturday Night Live? Okay, some people. So I remember back in the 70s, I was pretty young, but my dad watched it, and so I was watching it with him. And they had this, skit about the Lake Erie water, and they had this bottle of Lake Erie mineral water, and it's just gooping with stuff, and it had like beer bottle tabs in it and stuff like that, and they're promoting how it had so many minerals in it, it must be good for you. But it's back in the day when Lake Erie was so polluted, these fish were just dying. Now, in the medical model, they'd probably look at that and say, man, they need a lot of drugs. Right? If it was humans, that's what they'd say. Man, if humans start dying like that, we need to create a drug for it. Or a vaccine. Sound familiar? Okay, so now when we put it into context where it's topical, like, oh my God, is that what they're doing right now? Yeah, it's what they're doing right now. It's what they believe. And they're not trying to be hush-hush about it. That's what they believe. Hey, you need this. How come that fish doesn't need a vaccine? Oh, well, that's a fish. It's an animal. Okay, and so we got to remember that we don't need the vaccine just like the fish don't need the vaccine. We need to recognize where the environment is. Okay, if we're in a toxic environment, whether it's globally based upon fires or air pollution or water pollution, whatever it is, or it's individually based upon my own choices, we need to be more diligent about those choices. All righty. Okay, it's halftime. Everybody stand up. Everybody stand up. I can see you back there. You're not standing up. Why am I having you stand up? I just told you that movement deficiency is a lifestyle stressor. So one of the things we want to do, and try to do it on an hourly basis, and I went over the hour because I talk a lot, is we want to get moving. And so if you're at a desk at work, if you're in a chair at home, anything you're trying to do and you're an hour into it, you want to get up and you want to start reinvigorating your body's movement. So one of the things I want everybody to do is twist back and forth where your head and your shoulders move together. Do that about 10 to 15 times. And I recommend people do that every morning when they wake up. And they do that once an hour throughout the day if they can. I'm going to take my jacket off for this next one. And what this does is this gets blood flow into your spinal muscles, these stabilizers muscles that have been tight all day long. Even if you're standing, those stabilizers muscles have to work all day long. And so you want to get them some blood flow so they can be ready and prepared for the next thing you ask them to do. Now, the next group is called your I Want to Live Long exercises. Okay? So I want everybody bringing their arms straight over their heads and push their shoulder blades together the best they can. And you hold that for about 20 seconds. We'll cut it short a little bit for time, but about 20 seconds. What we're trying to do is overcorrect this posture of leaning over our computer and leaning on our textbooks and doing all this stuff in front of us. We need to overcorrect that. So we're in the shape of an I up here. Now you're going to bring your arms out into the shape of a W, thumbs back, shoulder blades back, and hold that for another 20 seconds. And then after that, we're going to go out to the shape of a T. Thumbs back, David. There you go. Shoulder blades together. Are you really just watching? And everybody just point and laugh. All right, now you're going to go down to one L on one side, one L on the other side. Shoulder blades together, 20 more seconds. And so this is an I, a W. I want to live long. Do you remember that? I want to live long. And that's an acronym you can possibly get. And if you do that throughout the day, first couple days, you're going to have some sore shoulders. You're going to be, man, Dr. Dan, jerk. But eventually, you're going to start overcorrecting and making your shoulders more square so you're not putting some adverse pressure on your joints, adverse pressure on your nervous system, and adverse pressure on your mood. Because I guarantee if you're standing up straight, your mood gets better than if you're hunched over. All right? So, one more thing I want you to, and some of you might have to hang onto a chair or a countertop, but I want you to have your feet parallel and you squat down as deep as you can, chest up, and you try to hold that for another 20 seconds. And what that'll do is it'll open up your knees, your hips, and your back because your joints have to get full motion throughout the day. If you have any joint in your body that doesn't get full motion, in about 2 to 4 weeks, it will start to scar up, creating scar tissues like the gristle in your steak. It will start to inflame, and it will send a message to your brain that something's wrong. You are in an unsafe environment. You are under threat. Prepare to fight. But guess what? It won't be a top 50 message. So it won't tell Tim that your knee's not working, dude. And it will just get worse and worse and worse until you recognize, and it finally becomes a top 50 message. It says, hey, by the way, we've been telling you this for 5 years, and you haven't been listening, so now we're going to tell you a little bit louder. Or it just becomes such a weak link that that's the one that gets injured with your next thing that you go out and do. So we have a lot of people that'll come to the office and they'll say, oh man, I slept wrong last night. My neck's killing me. Guess what? You probably didn't sleep much different last night than any other night. Okay, so it wasn't that you slept wrong. It's that stressor was such a minuscule part, but it was finally the one that pushed it over the edge on that weak link that it couldn't take it anymore. But that message has probably been sent to your brain over and over and over and over again for weeks or months, and now it wants you to really listen. All right, so you can sit back down. I do have things that can be passed out later that have those exercises on them for you. All right, so what can we do? Oh, now you're standing up. the contrarian. So what can we do for our choices now? They're super simple. I told you before, you eat well, move well, think well. right? So why do we need to eat well, move well, think well? Eating, it's one of the most important things. A lot of times we have a weight loss program at our office, and we have a lot of people that will be there that work out every day, but they just can't lose weight. And so I always tell them, the gym is for fitness, the kitchen is for fatness, right? And so we don't get abs in the gym, we get abs in the kitchen because of what we're choosing to eat. And that has such a more important role than just weight loss or physique. It has that genetic component to every cell, whether you want it to function correctly or incorrectly, whether you want it to go towards health or away from health. And so we have to kind of make that choice every time we're deciding what to put in our mouth. Is it going to go this direction or that direction? And it's a hard thing to make. It shouldn't be a hard thing to make. Okay, it should be an easy thing to make, right? But again, if we don't recognize we have a choice, we can't make the choice. Every Friday morning in Woodburn, our Chamber of Commerce meets. And so when I bought our practice, I started going there to try to get introduced. Even though I was there for 20 years, nobody really knew who I was. And so I'd go there, and one guy told me, that he had diabetes and confided in me in that. And whoever hosted Chamber would always have, their spread out there with donuts and pastries and coffees and juices. And so I went in one time and I saw Bill had this big old cinnamon roll. Hey, Bill. Morning. I give him a hug. I give everybody hugs. That was one of the things I tried to do when I got into the Chamber. I wanted them to get some hugs. And so now it's great because everybody hugs. And so I give him a hug and I say, hey, Bill, you want that cinnamon roll? And he's like, he's just blank stare looking at the cinnamon roll like he didn't know what to do anymore. And he's like, well, maybe I shouldn't eat it. I said, I don't care. And I left. And he stood there dumbfounded, just looking at his cinnamon roll. And, probably 90 seconds later, he just threw it away. Made me proud. He didn't know he had the choice to not take the cinnamon roll because he had conditioned himself every Friday to go to that table, take whatever was there because everybody else was doing it. He didn't know he had the choice not to. Okay, we have that choice. We just got to remember we have that choice. There's a quote that I liked. All right, so eat right for this species. What are we designed to eat? Okay, it's really easy. It's the whole raw foods. Okay, raw meaning real, not raw meaning you can't cook them. You can cook them. Probably good for you to cook them, especially the pork. Wild meat. Okay, what's wild meat? Well, we don't really have that option as often as we used to. Okay, but I'm going to give you a reason why you want wild more than farmed most of the time if you can have it, especially when it comes to fish. When they say farmed fish, where do you think it's farmed in? Small little pool. What do you think they eat? Well, what's their definition of everything? Yeah, well, I guess, but there's a specific diet that they're given. And it's primarily based upon corn and soy. Okay? Now, I don't know. I'm not Aquaman and I'm not somebody that works at SeaWorld, but I'm pretty sure that in the ocean, there's no corn and soy for the fish to eat. And so as soon as they start eating something outside of their own species, their meat starts to change. And so omega-3s is something you'll hear me in my office say all the time. You need your omega-3s. You need your omega-3s. It is literally the most evidence-based nutrient for neurologic health, cellular health, and anti-inflammation of your body. And we can't get it in our diet anymore. So I'll always talk about it. And people say, well, I eat a lot of fish. I eat a lot of fish. Well, you'll see it, on TV. Eat salmon. It's a good source of omega-3. Well, it used to be. But if it's cut and put, or it's in a swimming pool eating corn, it's now high in omega-6s, just like all of our other meats. And when our ratios, and omega-6 is an essential fatty acid, but we have way too much of it. And when it gets out of a ratio, you can literally measure the mental pathology happen the more it gets, to the point where there are studies that show you can become a murderer as a result of having too high of a ratio. That is how messed up your psychology can get. So it's pretty crazy, okay? So the ratio is supposed to be anywhere between 1 to 1 and 2 to 1, where omega-6 over omega-3. The average American is 15 to 1 to 20 to 1. And the average schizophrenic is at 30 to 1, and the average murderer is over 35. Almost all of them. Okay, so it is something to be mindful of. That and the fact that it helps your brain, nervous system, and cellular health. So, fruits and vegetables. Okay, why does it say seasonal fruits? Anybody have an idea? Yeah, well, yeah, because right now you can go to Walmart and you can get an apple every day of the year. Where does it come from? Okay, how far away did it come from? Does that mean they picked it when it was ripe? Because there is a shelf life on fresh fruit. It doesn't last very long. Right? You go to the farmer's market and you get your tomatoes and your apples and your peaches. You better eat them in a week. Why? Because they picked them when they're ripe. Why? Because they taste the best, and they taste the best for a reason. God wanted you to eat the ripe fruit because it has the most nutrients, allowing you to survive the best. If it's not ripe, he gave a sour taste to it to protect you from eating it. Okay? So, when we start eating things that are out of season, a lot of times they're altered to make them taste better and last longer. All right, so those are the modifications that they do. So genetically modified is a way to make things different. It's just like the farmed fish. You're putting that fruit or that vegetable into an environment that wasn't natural for that species of plant. And therefore, it's going to grow different than what God intended us to ever eat. All right, so nuts and water. Okay, water. Anybody ever heard of water? Yeah. You know, like I said, we used to have 2 choices what to drink, fresh water, fresh water. Now for breakfast, we have 100 choices, and fresh water is one of them, and nobody knows it's a choice. It's like, oh, why would you drink water for breakfast? Ugh. All right, so what isn't right? American food. Okay, I think it's funny when you go to a restaurant. What do you make? American food. Oh, great. So is that just sugar? Yeah, you're just table sugar. Yeah. You want it in a spoon, or you want little cubes? The little cubes are kind of fun. You can suck on them; they just dissolve. Processed meats, grains, dairy, anything artificial. So it says including natural flavors. I want to explain that. So a few years ago, there was a term called MSG. Okay, you remember MSG? They were associated with Chinese food. It's called monosodium glutamate. And it's what kind of gives a lot of the saltiness to it, but it's also a preservative. But what it also is, the glutamate part, it's an excitoneurotoxin. Okay? And that means that it excites your brain. It tricks it into thinking, hey, this tastes really good. And it tricks it into thinking, hey, dude, you're not full. Go ahead and eat some more. Go ahead. We'll make more. That was one of Doritos' slogans, too. Jay Leno back in the 1990s. It's like, go ahead and eat all you want. We'll make more. What a great concept. Get fat. We're just going to make you fatter. So now, with the MSG negative label, they say, oh, don't eat MSG, don't eat MSG. They stopped labeling things MSG. Glutamate is a compound that our body naturally produces. Okay, so it's intelligent. It's got a specific purpose in a small dose at the right time. But because it's something we produce and it's natural, that means the marketers and the chemists can label it natural if they put it in your food. So they can put as much glutamate in something as they want, knowing it's an excitoneurotoxin, knowing that it's harmful to your health, knowing it's going to make you eat more and more because you really like the taste, and it doesn't make you full. And so if you see something that says natural flavorings on your label, probably shouldn't get it. In fact, if you have to read a label, probably shouldn't get it. Right? Because when I go get my steak, there's no label on it other than steak. I mean, I'm sure it says something else, but I know it's steak. I don't have to read that. If I pick up an orange, it doesn't tell me it's an orange. It doesn't say what this nutritional content is. Okay? My broccoli, same thing. My water, yeah, isn't it funny they put a nutritional label on water? 0 calories, 0 this, 0 that. Thanks. All right, so one of the things that we're dealing with is the psychological warfare. I just talked a little bit about the chemical warfare that they're playing tricks on you with. The psychological warfare is our constant bombardment of emotional and mental stressors purposely trying to get you to eat something you should never eat. Okay, so you're always looking, and I wouldn't even have to put Taco Bell on there. If I showed you the bell, you would know what it was. If I showed you the star, you would know what it was. I don't know. If I showed you the 7 at 7-Eleven, so you got these kids, they don't want a vegetable. They definitely want their French fries, though. And so, if you go to the school system, this Department of Education, French fries and ketchup are 2 servings of vegetables. Yeah. That's the Department of Education. Okay, saving our kids, making sure they eat the vegetables. And so we got these little tiny kids. I remember we had a 5-year-old kid in my practice who weighed over 150 pounds, 5 years old. Think he was going to have problems? Think his parents were happy that he's at the top of the charts when they went to the doctor and said, hey, he's 90%. Everybody went, oh, my kid's at the 90th percentile. He's so healthy. What are they comparing him to? A bunch of other fat kids. Okay, we need to start letting our kids eat the way kids were designed to eat. And it wasn't to start them with McDonald's. That was a shirt that I saw in Venice, Italy. And I thought, man, isn't that the way? How come I don't see that in America? Anybody got an idea why we crave sugar? Anyone? So again, we go back to the bear analogy. Okay, not the bear being our stressor, but the bear. Which one was the healthy bear, whether he was hibernated or not? So if we go back 5,000 years, I'm walking around Salem, and it's the end of summer, and I'm starting to smell some fruit, and it's starting to smell sweet. Do you think I'm going to gravitate towards it? Yeah, that's why I have a sweet tooth, because hey, that smells really good. What happens when I haven't had sugar for 7 months because nothing was ripe yet, and I start eating sugar? Okay, it's not like the amount of sugar a donut would give me. It's like time traveler's donut, but I'm eating an apple. I found an apple. Wait, that's pretty good. I'm going to start creating insulin, and it's going to start binding some of that sugar towards fat because winter's coming. Anybody ever watch Game of Thrones? Winter's coming. Okay, so winter's coming, right? And during winter, I might not find fruits and vegetables. I might not want to go chasing rabbits. And so it'd be nice to have a little bit more layer of fat to keep me going through the lean months. So we are supposed to crave sugar because it's supposed to be a short time during the year, preparing us for a thin time during the year. Right? Hibernation. But fast forward 5,000 years, why do we get addicted to sugar? Okay? It's actually passed through the mother to the infant, through the placenta. So even before the baby's born, it can be addicted to sugar. It can already be insulin resistant before it's born. Isn't that sad? If you are looking at formula, okay, so moms, especially working moms, are like, oh man, I can't breastfeed anymore because I got to go to work and I got to pay the bills. Now I'm going to give my kid formula. So these PhD nutritionists, they're smart, right? They know nutrition, so they make these formulas for babies. The most precious things in our world. And the first 2 ingredients is high fructose corn syrup, which is basically just, syrupy sugar, And the next ingredient is sugar. The first two ingredients are sugar and sugar. Okay, so that kid is automatically getting insulin resistance at an early age. That's why we're starting to get kids that are diabetic at the age of 8. Okay, remember the food pyramid? Okay, yeah, you guys do. The young'uns do. Yeah, the food pyramid. Okay, so look at the bottom. Okay, 6 to 11 servings of breads, grains, pastas every day. 6 to 11 servings every day. I can tell you, we were not genetically designed to eat grains. Okay, it's been proven. Grain is an immature part of a plant. It is the infant of the plant. It is the seed that allows that plant to become more plant. Plants have been around for millions of years, figuring out a way to protect their young. So, if you get a bird that goes and eats a berry, and that bird then poops on your car, you're going to have a berry seed on your car. Okay? That's how those seeds propagate, because those seeds are not digestible. That is protection, making sure that I can propagate my species. Wheat germ is toxic. If I eat wheat germ, it should make me sick. Okay? But man's smart. We're going to figure out how to make wheat germ not toxic and more tolerable. And it was relatively smart because it allowed us to preserve food long enough when we got into the agricultural revolution and sustain winters better. And back then, there was no genetically modified food. Okay, well, 50 years ago, we started genetically modifying food because we had a lot more people. We're like, well, we need to make this stuff grow faster. And so we figured out how to eat the grains faster, but we still, anybody heard of gluten tolerance? Yeah, okay, everybody's heard of it now. 20 years ago, you never heard of it. Why? Did gluten change? A little bit. Did lifestyles change? A lot of it. Okay? People that are eating gluten-free breads, the gluten-free bread still has other protein molecules from that wheat germ that is still very toxic to us. And when we get these leaky guts and we open up our membranes to allow these bigger molecules in, it creates these autoimmune problems. And that's why we get some of these autoimmune diseases, because we get this leaky gut, we get this protein molecule in there. The protein molecule says, hey, what's that? And your body's like, hey, go get those guys. Go get those guys. Well, what's he look like? Oh, he's got an orange vest on. Orange vest. Okay, orange vest, orange vest. Oh, wait a minute. Eric's got an orange vest. Tim's got an orange vest. It's like, well, wait a minute. No one are you? Well, you got an orange vest on, sorry. And it's because they look so similar to some of our natural proteins, especially in our joints. That's where rheumatism comes from. That's where lupus comes from. It's just we got these hyper upset immune systems looking for things that don't belong. And then they look at everything that they don't think belongs. And so it's like I said earlier, with my family divided, if I don't agree with you with this thing, I'm not going to agree with you on anything. And so the immune system's the same way. If you are associated with her and I'm not supposed to hang out with her, then I'm not going to hang out with you. All right, where am I going? So we don't get fat from eating fat. That's a big thing. Back in the 70s and 80s, it was all non-fat diet. Non-fat, non-fat. Now they're starting to recognize that, that's not true. It's supposed to be, low carbs. Well, guess what? Fruits and vegetables are carbs. So we need to define carbs better. They're talking about the breads and the pastas. Let's not eat those. All right, sugar, yep. One of the reasons sugar is directly related to every major illness is because it's a toxicity. Okay, we just talked about toxic stressors, and so if we have toxic stressors, it's always in our system. Sugar is always in our system because everything in the supermarket is full of sugar. We can't get away from that bear. Fruit sugar. Okay, let's talk about fruit sugar. Fruit sugar is a sugar, and if it was just the sugar you ate, it would be toxic. If you eat it with the fruit, you get the benefits of the fruit that allows you to tolerate the sugar. But if you were to have like orange juice, okay, anybody like orange juice? I like orange juice. Orange juice, how many oranges do you think it would take to create a glass that tall of orange juice? 3? Well, that's a big old orange. It's probably about 8 to 10 to make that, because I've squeezed my own juice. So how fast can you drink that glass of juice? Pretty fast, because it's pretty good. Tastes good. How fast can you eat 8 to 10 oranges? Do you think you could eat 8 to 10 oranges in one sitting? No, your body won't let you. But your body doesn't have a genetic defense to stop you from drinking the orange juice. And so when you have 8 to 10 oranges worth of sugar without the protective qualities of the fiber and the phytochemicals, you are going to die until your insulin does that thing, and then you don't know it because it didn't get to your top 50 consciousness, and you're just moving on because I love orange juice, right? All right, so we are literally fighting chemical warfare, biological or psychological warfare, because they're teaching you to eat this because it tastes good and will make more. We're chemically modifying it to eat this because you can't control yourself. It just tastes so good. All right. So, start by adding something good in your diet. So a lot of people, they always say, well, I drink Mountain Dew all the time. Drink Mountain Dew. I need to stop drinking Mountain Dew. Okay? That's really going to be tough. You're depriving yourself, and psychologically, you're probably not ready to do that. Okay? It'd be great if you were, but your belief system probably isn't strong enough yet. You're trying to change your behavior because, I need to stop drinking something that I love to drink. Okay? I love Mountain Dew, but I'm going to stop. I love Mountain Dew, and I'm going to stop. Who's going to win that? Love. All right? So we got to recognize I don't love Mountain Dew. If I love Mountain Dew and Mountain Dew's trying to kill me, I'm in a pretty abusive relationship. So, fresh fiber first. This is a pretty easy one. Okay? So every meal, you have one thing in that meal that is fresh fiber. And this, I do have notes for you for this. These are your hacks. Ruth, I have notes for this. And so if you just put a carrot, you just put an apple, you just put an orange, you just put a broccoli, some piece of fresh fiber in your meal, it'll make such a huge difference on how your body digests the rest of that meal, even if it's a happy meal. You will digest it better because you have that fiber that's real. All right, yeah, pictures. 80 ounces of water a day. I just talked to somebody yesterday. He's like, oh yeah, I'm drinking so much water. I drink 2 bottles of these water things, and it's the flavored water. He's like, I got to drink 2 of these, and they're like 14 ounces a piece. I'm like, wow, what else do you drink? I don't drink anything else. And so why do we need that? Well, especially in the fires, it helps, purify your system, but it also helps oxygenate your cells. And you need that oxygen to make sure those cells work right, because oxygen and glucose is what gives your cells energy. And so we need that for hydration as well as oxygenation. All right, so this is important. As much as you like the gym, as much as you exercise, as much as you train for your marathon with the running, there is no exercise that can undo a bad diet. All right, essential ingredients. Okay, so these are the things that our diet will never give us. Okay, omega-3 fish oils, we talked about that. So you need to supplement this. Okay, and I can tell you, if you take a fish oil and you bite it and it tastes like fish, that's the wrong fish oil. It's like going to the restaurant. If you go to a restaurant, they always say, if you can smell the fish, don't order the fish. It's because the fish is now rancid. It has oxygenated enough to not necessarily become toxic, but it's not as good for you. So you don't necessarily want it. So you want omega-3 fish oil. It doesn't taste like fish. Vitamin D, because man decided we wanted to be modest and wear clothes, and we wanted to be lazy and be sheltered. We're the only animal that chooses to put ourselves into captivity. You literally take any animal out of the wild and put it in a cage, and you can literally watch it get sicker and sicker every day. But we choose to do it. In fact, we loved it so much, we put our cages on wheels so we can go from one cage to another cage without getting out of a cage. So vitamin D is necessary. It's one of the second most evidence-based ingredients. It's extremely important for our immune system, especially our lung health. I got a bunch of research in the last 5 months on how it improves COVID related exposures and stuff. If you get it, the people that are having the worst exposures or the worst experiences with COVID are shown to have a deficiency in vitamin D. That's kind of a no-brainer. The sicker people in the world have a deficiency in vitamin D. Okay, I remember there was a place, I grew up in Silverton, and there was a restaurant called the Townhouse there. And it's been there forever. And both of my parents worked, and so sometimes I'd go meet them, after school or something at the Townhouse. Well, the Townhouse back in the 70s and 80s was full of smokers. Smokers. And you just walked in, you'd do that. And obviously everybody that smoked was always drinking coffee. And so right then, if I was to do a research study and took all those participants and followed them throughout the years, I could probably conclude that coffee caused lung cancer. Just guilty by association, right? So I don't even know why did I go into that? I don't know. All right. Now, synthetic vitamins can actually harm you. I didn't know this until about a year and a half ago when I was going through this wellness program. I always thought the synthetic vitamins, the ones you get at like Target and Walmart, they're coated with different stuff so people can eat them easier. They don't taste like health food vitamins. But they didn't absorb as well. And so we would always say you would have to take almost twice as much to get the same effect of what it says you're going to get. And so even though you're saving money, you have to take twice as much. Well, now what I've read in the research is that synthetic vitamins actually can harm you. Okay? And they've actually stopped studies because they were seeing such deleterious effects on people that they had to stop the study because it's so bad for them. So you need to be really diligent on making sure that your vitamins are made of quality products from a quality producer. When I say synthetic vitamins, even vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E, they actually get it out of coal. And I didn't even know how that's possible, but it's chemically engineered to get that vitamin created out of a coal molecule. Weird. So be careful with your quality of vitamins. All right, moving right for your species type. Okay, at halftime I had you get up and move around because there is a huge amount of research on the movement neurology. It's called proprioception. It is an essential requirement for everybody's health. If you don't move, you will start to die faster. You can literally take a moving individual, make them not move, and watch them get sicker and sicker every day. And you can take an unhealthy individual and get them moving. You can watch them get better every day and every day. Okay, now what's the definition of better? Okay, well, think of the wilting plants again. Okay, if I have a wilting plant and I give it real water, real sunlight, and real food, and it's still wilting, did it get better? If I gave it what it is required to have, it had to have gotten better. It doesn't matter what the symptom was. Okay, so don't always look at the symptom. We have to think about that. Am I taking the interference away, and am I providing the raw materials for overall health? If those two things are happening, it doesn't matter what your symptoms are, it doesn't matter what your lab values are, you have to improve. I didn't say you got resolved. You have to improve. So we have to start thinking about that. Are we doing the things that we are genetically designed to do in order to improve? Eventually, the body will find its balance and all the other things will improve. All right, so we're designed to move like all the other animals. Okay, and initially, it had a purpose. The purpose was I had to go find food, and I had to avoid trauma or, dinosaurs. All right, and then I talked about how we were squatting instead of sitting. Sitting is now the new smoking because they know that it literally will kill you if you have it too much. And they're just like there's no exercise that can undo your bad diet, there is no exercise that can undo 8 hours of sitting. So if you go to the gym 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 90 minutes every morning, then you sit at your desk for 9 hours a day, you're still losing. That's why every hour you got to get up and move around. Make sure that movement neurology doesn't get stuck in a pattern that says, hey, I'm here. All right, so we talked about this with stuck joints. If they don't move, they don't always hurt, but they start causing inflammation, they start scarring. and bad messages. Stress, dead. All right, so, this is what happens. It could be any of these. All right. All right. So if that joint stops moving, not only does it create the stress responses, but, being a chiropractor, I get a lot of people who come in and say, I don't know what I did, but my back just went out. Okay? And I can attest to this. The worst time my back ever went out, I was at work, is probably 11 o'clock, 11:30 in the morning. I went to my desk. My desk is a little lower than this. There's a piece of paper on it. I went like this to pick it up, and I was on the ground. And I was on the ground for the next 6 hours because I could not move. Okay? So they brought the therapy up to our office, put me on, couldn't tolerate it. And I was in so much spasm. I've had kidney stones. The doctor said, hey, what's your pain level on your kidney stones? 7 or 8. Really? And kidney stone made me pass out and throw up. It was 7 or 8 because I have had a 10. And it was when my back went out and I realized I had to go to the bathroom, and the bathroom was over there, and I tried to move and it locked me up, and I'd have to hold my breath for about 30, 40 seconds, and finally it'd relax, and I'd have to move, and it'd lock me up again, and I'd have to relax. And if I had to live like that for 5 minutes, I would not live like that. I'd ask Dr. Steve, my other chiropractor, don't bring me the therapy, bring me your gun. Okay? Because it was too much to bear. Right? So, anyway, when we have these situations where we didn't do anything relatively traumatic, but your body reacts, it is usually due to misinformation from your joints to your brain. So if I wanted to pick that chair up, my brain will look through my Dewey Decimal System and say, hey, I remember a chair like that, and it weighed about 30 pounds. So I prepare my body to pick up 30 pounds. And your body's muscles and your body's joints are designed to mobilize and stabilize, okay, especially in your spine. So when I pick up that chair, immediately my muscles will send a message to my brain saying that's 27.3 pounds. And my brain will send a message back on how much to stabilize and how much to mobilize at that joint. But there's a joint a half inch away that says, well, we said it's 32.3 pounds. And so the muscles will stabilize differently for that joint. And it goes all the way up and down the spine like that every single second, every single microsecond when we're moving. Now, if my joints and my muscles are scarred over and I try to pick that chair up, now that muscle will say, well, that's somewhere between 25 and 35 pounds. So the accuracy is way different, and the brain doesn't know how to react to it. It's like, oh, well, I can guess and stabilize a little bit. Or I can punt and say, hey, you're not working today and you're going to sit on the floor for 6 hours. Okay, so it's misinformation. It's like if I first walked into this room, I've only been here once today, and I got to look around, say, okay, I got it. And then you turn off all the lights and it's pitch black. And then you say, Dr. Dan, please go find the 4th chair from the right on the 3rd row. What? And so that's what it's like. I'm using some information that I know, but it's not accurate anymore. Okay, so it's really important to recognize that without that movement, our accuracy goes away. You cannot heal or function without nerve flow and blood flow, and you can't have nerve flow or blood flow without movement. Okay, so are you getting the point that movement's important? All right. So here's some of the documented benefits of walking 30 minutes a day. So even though I said, you can't just exercise in the morning and then sit all day long, still exercise in the morning. Okay, so 30 minutes a day will do this. Prevents 91% of obesity and diabetes. Prevents 50% of all heart disease. Reduces strokes. Reduces heart disease deaths. Hospital admissions. Normalizes your blood pressure. Restores your cholesterol, reduces your risk of cancer by 60%, reduces risk of arthritis, osteoporosis. So I want you to look at that osteoporosis. The fractures of an osteoporosis costs your country, yeah, that'd be great, $38 million, thank you, sir, every year. No, every day. Every day. $38 million every day. So if we could prevent that, what do you think you could do every day with $38 million in this country? So think about the 38 biggest cities. Give them $1 million every single day. What good could be done with that? Would that be amazing? Just because somebody started walking. You increase your immune system function. Thank you, David. Prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. Man, that is one of the scariest diseases, Alzheimer's and dementia. I remember my mom said, man, if I get Alzheimer's, just let me drive off a cliff. I mean, that's how scary it is for people. Just start walking. It decreases the rate of aging, okay? Now, aging, you have to age, okay? But the rate of aging means how your body functions as you age. Okay, I remember when I turned 30, I was at work. We had a brand new patient who was 60. And it took him, he had to stop twice to walk, 40 yards to get to our exam room. He had to stop twice and take a breath. He's 60 years old. I was 30. I said, oh my God, I'm halfway there. I turned 50 a week from yesterday. So next Friday I will turn 50. So I got another 10 years in me. All right, so that's a lot of benefit for just walking 30 minutes a day, okay? We were told, when you walk out that door today, are we going to make some changes? Are you going to be a different person? It doesn't take much to walk 30 minutes a day. You don't have to walk a fast 30 minutes. You don't have to walk a far 30 minutes. Minutes are minutes, okay? You can literally shuffle, okay? Because eventually you will get better, okay? And that's one thing you're going to start learning here in just a minute, is you're going to get better the more often you do something. All right, we'll talk about spinal joints differently. All right, thinking right, okay? So this is one that a lot of doctors neglect, unless you're a mental health specialist. But thinking right, we talked about, the mental stressors that are always around us and the things that we can't necessarily get away from, but we can necessarily get our own choices on how to deal with it. We're genetically designed to seek pleasure, okay? We're basically 100 trillion single-cell animals all working together as an ecosystem, but they still want to avoid pain and seek pleasure. And so same thing's true with our thoughts. We want to have pleasurable thoughts. And we're the only animals that label unimportant things emotionally. Okay, so if you ask, I was walking the dogs last week, and there's a flock of sheep, right? Yeah. And there's still smoke in the air. And I asked my dogs, hey, does smoke bother you? They didn't say anything. I asked the sheep, hey, does smoke bother you? They didn't say anything. I asked, my neighbor, smoke bother you? Oh, yeah, that's terrible. Why do we complain so much? These other animals, they didn't say a word. So one of the things I tell my patients, when they're stressed out about something, is ask yourself out loud, is this a threat to my survival? And then answer yourself out loud, because remember I said you believe yourself when you hear yourself. So answer it out loud. No, it's not. And you will literally feel some of that weight coming off your shoulders when you tell yourself it's okay not to stress about that deadline at work, or not to stress about that Facebook post, or not to stress about that commercial about Trump. It doesn't matter. You don't have to stress and put yourself in a fight or flight mode because of it. All right, so emotional reactions to the same stimulus may differ upon your perspective. So we have this 15-year-old girl in our office, and she's got a dad that loves her. He's a big construction worker. And we got a 32-year-old lady in our office, married for 4 years, been trying to have kids. And we got a 68-year-old grandma in our office. And I go into each room and I tell them all the same thing. Hey, congratulations, I hear you're pregnant. Same stimulus. 3 completely different responses. 15-year-old runs away. 32-year-old kisses me like I got her pregnant. 68-year-old keels over dead out of shock. We don't have to respond with a fight or flight response. The stimulus didn't change. Now, obviously, their lifestyle dictates their emotional response, but you have to recognize you have the choice on how to respond to the stimulation. Now, negative events do deserve negative reactions. If a loved one dies, mourn them. That's an emotion. You need to have that emotion. It is healthy. If you don't emote, you will create your own internal stressors. My stepdad got brain cancer. In my brain, being super smart, I knew he was going to die from it. In my heart, being super smart, I knew I could save him. Now I had internal turmoil. Okay, my body was combating itself on my belief systems. Who was right? Who was right? I gave myself Bell's palsy, where half my face paralyzed. I gave myself a bubble in my retina that I still have today. So when I do that, it's like a funhouse mirror. Because I created my own stressors. And my brain was right. It ultimately killed him. But I put myself in that situation to allow that stimulation start to destroy myself. All right, yep, don't avoid. But just because you had a negative event doesn't mean it needs to make every event negative. Okay? Allow yourself to mourn the loss. Allow yourself to be angry about an event for that event. But you don't want it to create a perpetual, thank you, mood. You don't want the behaviors to keep being there. I don't want to mourn the loss of my stepdad at my son's, 5th birthday party. If my stepdad died 8 years ago. Oh, I wish Bob was here. That's not fair to me. It doesn't do Bob any good, and it certainly didn't do my son Alex any good, right? And so there will be memories that bring up emotions. Let them happen, but don't allow your mood to become negative because of one event, because it will kill you, and it is not fair to you. You are designed to be happy. You have the right to be happy. All right. Now, remember, when you're in fight or flight, you're looking for bears, right? If you're looking for bears, that means you're looking for negatives. What's the world doing right now? Every single person is looking for a negative, and they whittle you down until they find it. Are you a believer, Ashley? You Christian? You believe in Christ? Yeah, okay, that's good. Are you Catholic? Oh my God, you're not Catholic? What's wrong with you? I mean, that's what people do. They find, they'll accept you until they think that they're better than you. That one thing they think they're better than you. And so I tell people, as soon as you think you're better than somebody, you just lost your moral integrity. You can't treat people as an equal if you think you're better than somebody else. A different group, a different belief, a different race, it doesn't matter. You can't look at a group. Now, 5,000 years ago, and you're living on this side of the river, and that group, you know they're there, but I don't know anything about them. They might be a threat to you. That's different. Right now, we're in a civilized world. Why is everybody a threat to me? Okay, that's my own belief system, not necessarily theirs. But in my own family, if I believe this one thing, what the heck happened? What happened to the ability to converse and still love? Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah, but look at those things, man. Those are threatening, aren't they? Now, you're training your nervous system. I want to talk a little bit about that. I don't know where my other slide is. So, anybody heard of muscle memory? Okay. Does muscle memory affect like sports? Okay. Anybody play basketball? Okay. You play basketball, and we talked about this, right? Muscle memory. You grab the ball. you bounce it. Okay, if you've ever played basketball, you know how you want to stand when you're getting ready to shoot. If you've never played the basketball, you have no muscle memory with it. You're like, but once you get good at it, you grab the ball, you bounce it, and you find the seams, and you bend your legs, and you do this, and you breathe here, and you move there, and you get the right amount of spin, the right amount of torque, the right amount of arc, and it goes in more often than the person that's juggling. Now that happens because you've practiced. And it's not muscles that have the memory, it's the brain that has the memory. And it's the brain that's controlling the muscles on what to do. And the more often you do it, you're not only just firing those muscles in unison, you actually start wiring the nervous system together to where it is just a single light switch that gets all of the lights to go off. Instead, I got to turn that switch off, that switch off, that switch off, that switch off in order to get this to move to this to move to this to move to this to move. It all fires together. That is muscle memory. It's your nervous system. It is the literal choice on a Friday morning at greeters for the chamber going to the donut. I have a muscle memory to go to donuts. Every Friday morning, I know I'm going to go to a donut. I'm going to go to a donut. It's Friday morning. I woke up. Where's my donut? There it is. It becomes automatic. Every time I grab the bottle, I just know what to do. Every time I go to greeters, I just know what to do. So our thoughts are automatic. They're literally on autopilot. We literally have to tell ourselves to stop. What am I doing? Because the negative thoughts can be on autopilot. Man, as soon as I see that Aunt Katie, I know I'm going to be mad. You just put it in your head. Why are you going to do that? And pretty soon you don't have to tell yourself in your head. It just happens. Katie. Same thing's true with positive beliefs. You can create positive habits. So when I go to the chamber, guess what I don't get? I've never gotten a donut when I went there. I've never gotten a juice when I went there. I've gotten a banana. I've gotten a water. I've given hugs. What have I created? I've created an environment that other people are getting hugs. I've also created an environment that now when I leave, I see a whole plate full of donuts left on the table because other people aren't eating donuts. I didn't tell them once, unless they were a patient or came to a class. But I never told them, don't eat that donut. I asked them, do you want to eat a donut? All right, so thinking right, it really takes the most effort. We talked about willpower, okay? We didn't have willpower to choose between water because we didn't have to choose between water. We didn't need to choose whether or not to worry about Trump. All right. Let's see. You got to teach your children early. This is one thing that a lot of people don't recognize. When we talk to people, most days we average around 4,000 to 6,000 words a day that we will tell another person out loud. Okay? And obviously today I'm going to reach 10,000. But we tell ourselves over 100,000 words every day. Okay? Our inner dialogue. Do you think we tell ourselves positive thoughts or negative thoughts? Hopefully this group of experts is telling yourselves positive thoughts because you have tremendous influence, especially coming out of this building because you've made a choice and you've come out of a positive environment. It's a lot easier to keep those positive thoughts momentous. But the one negative stimulation that hits you at home or hits you on the commercial or hits you at work tomorrow morning can set that negative momentum going the other direction. So we literally have to tell ourselves to stop and love ourselves the way we're designed to love ourselves so we can have that abundance to be able to love somebody else. Because it's really hard to love somebody else if you're not in love with yourself. Yep, wild dominoes. Never needed willpower. Why is it so hard to make healthy choices? Okay, so we talked about the anxiety, right? anxiety always being elevated when we're under stress, and therefore anxiety is elevated, our ability to make goal-oriented, rational thoughts decreased. Okay, so if we're stressed out, we're looking for immediate gratification. Man, I know I want to work out tomorrow morning, so I'm going to get up at 4:30 and work out before work. And then 4:30 comes. No. Snooze. I'm going to have salad for lunch, man. Salad, I'm going to start eating healthy tomorrow. First thing tomorrow, I'm going to start eating healthy. Man, that pizza smells good. We want the immediate gratification. Because when we're under stress, we don't know that we're going to survive the day. That's literally the way it works. If we're under stress, we want to go right now to what's going to make us happy right now. And we will usually crave sugar and fat because that's sources of energy. And so innately, our intelligent body says, well, we're under stress. We need more energy because we're fighting, right? Well, no, we're not fighting. We're preparing to fight. We're building our defenses. But we're neglecting our schools, and we're neglecting our roads, and we're neglecting our infrastructure that builds a safe, healthy economy. But we're building defenses because we're prepared to fight. We just don't know what we're fighting. All right, so neuroplasticity, this is literally the muscle memory. Okay, the ability to change your nervous system and make it more efficient at what you want to do. One of the things I told my patients over the last 8 months, when the world's making you slow down, you have to quarantine and not do things, learn how to meditate. And I always say, there's a difference between prayer and meditation. Prayer is when you're talking to God. Meditation is when you're listening. And it gives you that time to reflect on what you're trying to accomplish by getting rid of the negatives and listen to what God's trying to tell you. And people are like, man, I tried that. And it's really hard. It didn't work. You know what? I tried snow skiing once. It was really hard. Didn't work. But I thought it was kind of cool, so I tried it again. And I tried it again. And I tried it again. And now I get pretty good at it. And so now, that's me. I'm joking. That's not me. But the more you practice at something, including meditation, including prayer, including singing, I was going to, make Joy sing a song and embarrass her, and how did I know that she was going to be singing songs the whole time? You tricked me. All right, so it starts with belief. Remember, you can't change behavior long term if you don't have a belief system that backs it up. Your belief is your foundation. And so we have to recognize we have choices, but the choices have to follow a belief. If you believe that donuts are fine and you love them, you're never going to stop eating donuts. You have to recognize that the donuts aren't fine and you don't love them. Because even if you think that they're not fine, if they're bad for me but I love them, I'm not going to stop eating them. Okay, so we have to change our belief systems. And you do need to seek them out. And should they be logic, moral, and healthy? Okay, and that's one of my political issues, is that it doesn't matter who's in the White House. I don't think any of the decisions are logical, moral, or healthy. But that's just me. And it's not a matter of liking it, okay? So again, you don't try to find something you like. You try to like something you need. And so, kids are always like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. Well, my wife's the same way. I don't like that. You don't have to like it to eat it, okay? It's not your source of pleasure. It's your source of fuel. It's your source of, nutrients. It's designed, I don't know if the plant, I asked the plant, hey, do you like this? And they're like, they didn't tell me. And my dogs, it's funny. I don't know if you're going to eat the same thing this morning that you had last night, but, my dogs, when I give them their dog food, they don't look at me and say, oh, dude, this again? Why are we like that? Why do we have the need like, oh, man, well, we just had that last night? 5,000 years ago, you wouldn't have complained. If you caught a rabbit, you're going to eat the rabbit till you're done with the rabbit. All right. And once we make one good choice, you got the foot in the door. If you can make that good choice often and often enough, you will start feeling better about yourself. You will start noticing a difference most likely, and you'll make it easier to make the next good choice. And then you'll perpetuate and go back to balance where we belong. So, what do? We supplement with our vitamin D and our omega-3s. We eat fresh fiber first, drink out 8 ounces of water. Okay, these are all on your notes that you'll get in just a bit. And then eventually you remove the negatives, the things that you have that love-hate relationship with. You walk 30 minutes a day, and I would recommend you tell yourself and another person what days a week and what time of day. Because you don't have to walk 30 minutes a day if you don't walk at all. Say, I'm going to walk 2 days a week for 30 minutes. And they're going to be on Mondays and Thursdays at 8:30 in the morning. Tell yourself, write it down, and tell somebody else to make you accountable. Because once you put it into a plan, it's a little harder to break that plan than to just put it into a thought. Do your warm-ups each morning that we talked about. Do your I want to live longs each day throughout the day. Do your deep squats throughout the day. Get up once an hour to do them. And for those who don't get adjusted, you want to get adjusted from a chiropractor. Doesn't have to be this chiropractor, but why do you want to get adjusted by a chiropractor? Because there is no exercise that can make this joint move on that joint. And because we sit all day long, they're going to get stuck. And because they will tell your brain a message that you don't hear, they will cause a problem if they don't get unstuck. Every morning when you wake up, I want you to force a smile on your face and find what you are grateful for. Okay, this is huge. It puts you into a positive mental state to start your day. Eventually, you won't have to force the smile anymore. You'll build that neuroplasticity, that muscle memory of your nervous system to where when you wake up, you'll just automatically, and you'll have the thought in your head already. And it'll be such a glorious feeling to start your day that way instead of Monday. Make a plan for events that require choices. I'm going to the chamber on Friday. There's going to be a donut. What's my plan? Don't eat the donut. Live in love, not in fear. This is a huge one that I've taught my kids from day one. When you live in love, you think about others. When you live in fear, you're thinking about yourself. And I want, to recognize that, there's all the cliches that, if you light a candle, you don't lose anything from the candle, but that's so true. You guys heard that, right? You haven't? So if I have a candle and Tim's got a candle and I take my flame and I light his unlit candle, now he's got a flame and I still have a flame, right? I didn't lose anything. Same thing's true with love. If I give Tim my love, I don't lose my love. I get to have my cake and eat it too, right? But now Tim's got my love and he knows it, right? Minimize your non-essential external stimulations, okay? The negative TVs, the negative Facebooks, the negative, people that are in your lives. Avoid the negative people in your lives. If there's somebody that's just always going to bring you down and always has to negate you, love them where they're at, but from a distance. Recognize your own negative behaviors. Sometimes you need a coach to help you do that. Okay, anybody heard of Tiger Woods? Yeah, he's a pretty good golfer, right? Tiger Woods has 13 different golf coaches. I guarantee he's better than every one of them at golf. But he's got a putting coach and a sand coach and a wedge coach and drive coach and a fairway coach and a rough coach. He's got a diet coach and a yoga coach and a strength coach. Why does he have all these coaches if he's so good? Or is he so good because he's got all these coaches? But I guarantee he's human. And so there will be a life event that's going to change what he's thinking that particular day that he doesn't recognize as affecting his function. And his coach can say, dude, what'd you eat last night? Man, you're like all over the place. And so it bounces him back to balance. Anybody do martial arts? Yeah, just a couple. So a lot of times martial arts masters say always find your center. Okay, always find your center. That's your starting point. That's your defense point, but that's your starting point. And when you get knocked off center, you got to get back on center. What we're trying to accomplish with all of this is to get you more resilient so you're on center to where when you get knocked off by any external stimulation or internal stimulation, you will bounce back easier. If I eat broccoli and broccoli and broccoli and broccoli, and I stay in balance, and then I eat a lasagna, I might adapt a bit, get bounced off. But if I eat broccoli again, guess what? I'm back on center. Okay, so build your resilience based upon your choices habitually, doing it more often than not. And then at the end of the day, as soon as you go to bed, force the smile on your face now. What did I trade today in for? Was it worthy? Because guess what? You're not going to get it tomorrow. Today's over. You don't get it back. It's amazing how many, especially school-age kids, I'll say, what are you going to do this weekend? Nothing, probably sleep. Probably sleep? Dude, this is one of your weekends. One of your weekends. I remember listening to a radio show years ago, and the average lifespan of a male is 77 years. And the guy on the radio was being interviewed, and he was, talking about that, and he said, I learned that, back then, and how many different weekends that carried out to. So I figured out how many weekends I had left to get to 77, and I put a number of marbles in this jar, and every Sunday I would take one out. And he said at that interview, this morning I took my last one out. So his jar was empty. Okay, he had reached his lifespan expectancy, and the rest was going to be bonus. But when he's taking those out, when he's 40 years old, how much was that marble worth compared to when he is 77? And that last one, how much is that one worth? Right? So we got to think about each day. I am trading this day in. It is one of my days. I was given this day, not because I was worthy of it, not because I earned it somehow later. I was given it to me from God above to make sure I do something good with it if it's my choice. God gave us free will. Didn't give us willpower, gave us free will. Okay, we get to make a choice. You had a message in one of those songs, God sees the heart of man but loves us anyway, lets us live. That's power. That's power. I mean, especially this day and age. Make God proud of us. Make your heart worthy. All right, screen time. I was going to give you intentions on screen time, but screen time's, we don't need screen time. If you're not a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, where you're living in a tribal capacity and you're not sitting all day long, you're not eating fruits and vegetables, and you're not loving, dancing and hugging, you need a chiropractor. All right. Remember, there's no drug, food, surgery, exercise, massage, thought, or anything that could get one spinal joint to move on another. And it's the only way to make sure that lack of spinal motion doesn't lead to chronic illness. All right, we do have a weight loss program I talked about. There's a huge cost to being overweight, $8,000 to $6,000 a year it would cost to be overweight in addition. Okay, so we do have in my notes, everybody's got the option to come to our office. I get through this stuff here. Oh, yeah, so here's a lady that did our weight loss plan. She lost 150 pounds. Now, she didn't lose 150 pounds on my plan. She lost 27 pounds on my plan. She learned on my plan how to be a better human. Okay? How to love herself. It all started because she couldn't love herself. She actually came in for a car crash. And she gave me permission to use her testimonial, which is on our website. And I said one day, because she was, quite overweight, she was 26 years old, she was losing hair, had facial hair, had, insulin-resistant skin, you could see it peeling off of her. I said, Emily, can you look in a mirror and tell you that you love yourself? She said, Dr. Dan, I don't own a mirror. Why would I want to look at myself? So we focused on her appreciation for herself, and eventually got her on our plan. 155 pounds later, she is quite a bit different lady. Had mirrors all over the place, had a job, had self-esteem, had love for herself, had love for others, shared her message of what she learned to other people that, was in a lifestyle similar to hers. So that's why I do what I do, to make that kind of a difference, to where she can make that difference to somebody else. This was me 26 pounds ago. Hopefully I look different. You can't tell because this thing's in front of my face. All right, so in your packet, everybody here will get a card, and that gives you the opportunity to come to our office anytime within the next 2 months, I believe, to get a free consultation and examination with myself or one of the other chiropractors. You can also use it for acupuncture if you'd prefer. And any x-rays that we need to take would only be $49. We do take x-rays, and we have a philosophy for that based upon the need to know how to correct. But that lowers hurdles. It gives you the opportunity to see if there's something that we can do to help you. It's no obligation. Even if we say, hey, we can help you, you got a lot of problems, you can say, hey, Dr. Dan, thanks, and you can bolt. You can even take those x-rays to a chiropractor of your choice. I don't care. I don't need you to see Dr. Dan. I need you to see a chiropractor because that's going to help you live longer. You also get a card in there for a consultation of our weight loss program that you can have for yourself. You can give it away to anybody else. That gives them another opportunity to see what our programs have to offer. They will get one free LED laser session where I've seen as much as 3.5 inches come off their midsection in 7 minutes. And you get the knowledge of how to live right for your species type. Now, I was going to have you watch this thing, but I'm just going to ask you the question. What does your last 10 years look like? What does your last 10 years on this earth look like? Because everybody's got them. We don't know why they start. It's not sad. It should be glorious, in my opinion. But some people's last 10 years, you can have them look like, I want to be the grandma that's on the floor playing with my grandkids. You know, I want to be hiking up Silver Falls hand in hand with them and, feeding them grapes. I want to be enjoying life and taking, the family to different countries and different cultures and expressing the world. Or I can be the grandma that's stuck in a chair with tubes up their nose and the home health nurse always feeding me medications and the house doesn't smell good enough for my grandkids to ever want to visit. It doesn't matter. It's either way or anything in between. But when do you get to start choosing how that's going to pan out for you? There's an old adage that says, if you want a tree, when's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. When's the next best time? Right now. What's your lifestyle worth changing for? Okay, I saw some gorgeous kids running around earlier this morning, right? They're worth it. Okay, I see some gorgeous people in this audience. You're all worth it. Okay, you deserve to love yourself. You deserve to love each other. What's more important than that? All right, any questions? I'm done. So now's the time to ask them. I got answers for everything. If I don't know it, I'll make it up. Got me through high school. All right, if there's no questions, I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. I hope everybody got something out of this.